Good afternoon. I am indeed so glad to be back with you on another show. Book it. Listen, it has been an amazing time that we have had these last couple of weeks. As you know, we have had John Coaxum out of Egypt, and we've had on last week Trisha Wynn Payne, the fight of my life. And I'm just so happy for the responses that we have been getting in. And if you have not received your free copy of these books, we want to let you know we've got them in. We've got multiple copies of the Fight of My Life and also Out of Egypt. Why don't you go to secsda.org/book it right now to get your free copy, and we will make sure that we either email it or ship it out to you right away. Well, as for tonight, I am excited. I am excited for multiple reasons because we have a special guest here on tonight. We have with us Pierre Quinn. He's a pastor, an author, motivational speaker. He is the foremost principal agent of the Cordell Group. We are excited to have him with us here on this evening. And I have a special co-host, my great friend, my compadre, my buddy, Pastor Prince Lewis, our youth director for the Southeastern Conference. And before we bring our special guest on, I got to bring my co-host on. I'm just so excited to have him with me here on tonight. Hey,
Jay,
Prince,
what's up, baby?
Oh man, listen, it is indeed an awesome night, man. I just want to say thank you for coming on the show, man. I mean, I feel like it's Friday Night Live, man, a day early.
Listen, man, we get to do this tonight and tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Listen, I love it. I mean, it's an opportunity to hang out, to glean and to just hear from a person of value, someone with wealth to pour out into our young people and to our conference. So listen, hey, sign me up. I'm ready to go. I'm ready.
Yes, man. Listen, he's just. I never forget. Pierre, man. I just felt like I was among royalty, man. As I've seen God just elevate him, and as he's been a blessing on leadership, a prominent voice on leadership, man. And he exemplified that leadership. I remember when he was in Kentucky, just north of Nashville when I was there, man. And he would invite me, man. And he was just a host extraordinaire, man. Hey, listen, without further ado, man, I got to bring our special guest on, man. Pierre, man, how's it going?
Man, it's good to be here with y'all. Been watching your work from afar and celebrating what you're doing. And it's a privilege and an honor to hang out with you this time.
Oh, yes, man. Well, listen, the privilege is ours. Listen, for everybody watching right now, we want to gift you. We want to bless you with his book off top. Before we even get started, you better get yours while you can. Get in where you fit in. Right now, I want you to go to secsda.org/book it. And we're going to be sending you digital copies that we have purchased on your behalf. Because look, hey, at the end of the day, we are here to make sure that everyone that is participating by watching this show can actually be a blessing. And we want to be a blessing to our host author as well. So listen, man, without further ado, Leading While Green. I mean, what moved you to write this book? And just break the ice, man. What is it about?
Yeah, so again, privilege and an honor to hang out with y'all to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that's the topic of leadership. Let me just give you the context real quick of Leading While Green. So in our vernacular, in our denominational construct, I'm what you call a second career pastor. So I went to seminary after I was a professor for several years, worked in fundraising and development. So I go to seminary, do my 3 years in seminary. I get dropped in Bowling Green, Kentucky, as you mentioned, north of Nashville. And I'm realizing, being in Bowling Green, Kentucky, that I understand higher education leadership. I understand nonprofit leadership from a fundraising perspective. But I found quickly that what I studied in seminary, now I ain't trying to offend nobody. I ain't trying to get in no trouble tonight. But there was a lot of theory in seminary that when the rubber hit the road in Bowling Green, Kentucky, I could do absolutely nothing with. Like, I couldn't do anything with that. And I found myself in a space where my head was spinning. You know, I had great mentors, Pastor Andre Anderson from Toronto, David Steed from Bermuda, Dr. David Defoe here in Maryland. So I had some great mentors, but I needed a little bit more. So I started going on a journey to just ask the questions that I was too afraid or would have been too embarrassed to ask in a workers meeting or in a conversation like that. And I just started asking far and wide these simple questions about leadership. And after a while, I started sharing some answers and perspectives with my colleagues. And somebody said, you should put this in a book. And really, that's how it started. It was my own pastoral leadership journey, feeling out of sorts, looking for some direction, and then going on the research to get some questions answered and help some other people along the way.
So Prince, he said that when he went, to Bowling Green, man, he had to find some mentors.
You could put Wilson, North Carolina.
Oh, I mean, listen, I think we've all been there, man. When we all started, this is what's the funny part about it. This is probably some of the things that you heard based on your book when you went to North Carolina, Prince. This is what Pierre said. This is what he said that he heard. He said you're still wet behind the ears.
Yes.
I mean, what leader wants to hear that, right? You still need training wheels. I mean, this is just a blow to your, pride.
No. You get the hang of it. Trust me, you will. Just hold on.
Yeah. They said you need someone to hold your hand, and then here it goes.
You're too green.
Listen,
you're too green.
You're too green.
For whatever reason, they're supposed to be motivational, to help you move and be really focused. But after you spent $60,000+ and you sat with some of the so-called great thinkers and leaders, and you walked into that new district, realizing, man, 60% of this stuff I can't even put on the wall.
Yeah.
and that's when you start looking. Somebody.
Anybody.
Somebody. So Pierre, you right on it. I think we're gonna channel through you tonight.
Yeah.
You can tell Oakwood or Andrews.
Andrews.
And I'm gonna stop right there.
So listen, this is why this is important, because here was you say your second career, pastor. So you wasn't as quite as young as some may have been when they first started out, but you were still looked at as inexperienced. And what we want our viewing audience to understand is that sometimes, people may perceive you to be green, as to say, premature, not ready yet, right? And we just want to encourage, our viewing audience that God can still use you while you are green. Here's some of the things that you said, in your book. You said all they saw was a young kid fresh out of seminary in need of their help as he learned how to ride the bike off ministry without any training wheels. They had doubts about my maturity, which beget doubts about my competency, which result in their not trusting my leadership. And that's what leadership requires, trust. I mean, how do you gain that trust? Speak to us. How do you gain that trust as an emerging leader, yet still considered to be green?
Yeah, the dichotomy for me is that at 31, when I started in my first district, in a corporate context, at 31, senior level, upper level management. I mean, I started doing leadership development work around 32. And when I would walk into these organizations, no one ever asked me about my age. No one ever questioned if I was mature enough to handle the responsibility. And I'm talking about corporate execs. I'm talking about, companies that spend a lot of money on training and developing their people. No one questioned my age. So going into a religious context, for being a church pastor and having those questions and not necessarily feeling like I had a space to even talk about the doubts that I had, it sent me personally kind of into a spiral. And one of the things that's very important, especially when you're going into a totally new culture as an emerging leader, as a young leader, I know you're smart, I know you're gifted, I know you're talented, but you got to become the student again. And you have to become a student of the culture that you're working in, organizational culture, geographically, ethnically, whatever space you're working in. So I realized in order for me to be effective here, I have to become a student of Kentucky culture. I have to become a student of African American, central, South Central Kentucky culture in order for me to do well here. And that means that what I think I know has to be put on hold. I literally sit and talk with as many people as I can and soak up their experience and their perspective and even their leadership in the context and learn from them, even though I just spent 3 years learning in seminary.
Now, what's interesting, Pierre, is that within that context of religious hierarchy, that way.
Yeah.
I did not offend anyone when I make this statement, but it's a true statement nevertheless. It seems as if those who are illiterate in leadership, they seem to rise to the top within those structures. And those of us who are educated and trained, we have the hardest time trying to navigate because their training is of the elements around them. We are the foreign object coming into the element. And that is the same case right now with our young people. Today, these are educated. One, you were already sitting with executives, educated young men and women, 26, some are even 24. Okay. And they are perceived as unspiritual, untrained for church work. The one that's literally guiding the process is illiterate in all aspects of leadership. Not to offend anyone, they have the Spirit, they know the Lord, but they just can you speak to that when the top is just not capable of integrating with what's competent? Help us.
So I think what we wrestle with there is just maybe different terms and perceptions of leadership. So if you look at leadership theory, for the longest time, it was what was considered great man or great woman leadership. And great man, great woman leadership is excellent in a crisis scenario. It's excellent. So take civil rights movement. We need great man, great woman leadership. Take wartime in the United States, principally. We need great man, great woman leadership. They're very stern. They're matter of fact. It's their way. Many times it's their way of the highway because it's a crisis situation. And we can't afford to really be going back and forth. On the other side of the crisis, we can, but not in this moment. And I think principally in a lot of organizations, they still try to operate in that great man, great woman leadership. With great man, great woman leadership, the person does not need to be necessarily strategic. They don't need to be emotionally intelligent. They don't need to be resourceful because they hang their hat on the mere fact that they are the leader. And in the duration of this crisis, we're just going to do what they say just because they're in charge. We have not lived in that paradigm for so long. But many leaders still operate in that paradigm. So now we're in a relatively peaceful and safe context. And I know when we look at what's going on in this country and the threads of inequity that we've been wrestling with for a long time, but for the most part, when we go to work, when we go to church, for the most part, when we have our church meetings and conversations, it's in relative peace and safety, which opens itself up for creative thinking and collaboration and different perspectives And one of the worst things that we can do is that we take our young people, we have them spend tens of thousands of dollars on school to get education. We force them to be, or we lead them to be the top of their class. They get out and get amazing jobs and start amazing careers. And then as they come back to their home congregations, we say, yeah, you got to be 50 though, before you leave the nominating committee. Now they're leading $100 million projects at work.
Right.
And our $250,000 church budget, we're challenged to see that this person can lead in capacity. And what's really going to shift for, especially in the time that we live in now, is that when the older generation begins to see the younger generation as their legacy, not as their inhibitor, but as their legacy. And one of the things that I talk about in the book is that if I see you as my legacy, that means I'm going to position you for success. I'm going to pass the mantle and not get in your way and not be intimidated when you bring a different set of skills to the context that I don't have. I mean, I look at my girls now and I'm reasonably comfortable with tech. I'm a digital really immigrant because my kids are digital natives. I grew up in an analog environment. So there's some things now I'm fumbling with technology and my kids are just like, Dad, just do that. Now I could be mad at my kids. How dare you know this before I do? Matter of fact, you know what? I'm not even going to put no tech in the house, because if I don't put tech in the house, it keeps the house analog and it keeps my children limited.
You preaching.
But if they're my legacy, I am going to position them to be their absolute best, especially when their absolute best means that now I have to become the student and they're the teacher.
Nice.
That is phenomenal. Nice. I mean, listen, I hope you are paying attention right now. We are here with Pierre Quinn, leading while green, and he just dropped a bombshell. He talked about leaving a legacy. And when we see, young people as our legacy, we will put them in positions to be successful. Wow. Listen.
So I walked away with great man, great woman.
Yeah.
Walked away with the environment.
Yeah.
And I don't know if those who are listening caught what the undercurrent of the environment does to the young person. I'm receiving this because it makes sense. A great man probably is needed to hold something together, but if it's progressive, to shift from being great and now become a collaborative leader and begin to move. Listen, that by itself is $1 million by itself, because I have never heard the term great man, great woman in the context that, listen, during wartime, you're not trying to negotiate a leader, moving his army or his troops into battle. Listen, I'm the boss. If I can't read, I'm still the boss.
Yeah.
If I can't,
war.
I'm still the boss because it's war. Man, that is phenomenal, because now I can use some of that. Well, I don't have to use it. I got the man right here. I can bring the man in to teach this because it makes sense. We got too many great, let's go on.
Well, let's talk about another great man.
Awesome, man.
Let's talk about this great man. He knows a little something about war. You said retired 4-star general and former Secretary of State Colin Powell. He identifies trust as a key quality of effective leadership. He defines leadership as creating conditions of trust in organizations. I mean, this is a challenge that emerging leaders, leading while green, have a difficulty dealing with, because from your book, you say a lot of times they lead from the standpoint of being positional leaders versus influential leaders. They haven't gained that trust yet. They just hold the title. I mean, talk to us about that idea, for these emerging leaders who are watching.
Yeah. So let's I mean, I'm churchy, right? So I got to give you a churchy example.
Give me a churchy example, man.
And back when we were hanging out at church a lot before the whole COVID situation, one of the biggest places for arguments in church is the kitchen.
Okay.
I know y'all don't know anything about that.
I've been lashed over the kitchen in my home city.
So in the kitchen and it's not just in church, it's in homes too. You know when there's certain special days, certain special events, you're gonna ask certain people to cook. Because you know they can be trusted. You know, so consistent. They hit it out of the park every single time. Every single time. And that's not something that happened, you know, over a year or so. That is something that tried and true, built up over time. Sister Jenkins, or Sister Johnson, or Brother Phillips, or whoever. I'm just pulling names out of the sky. I ain't talking about nobody in particular. They developed a sense of consistency and reliability. So they're the ones that make the rolls. They're the ones that make the special casserole. They're the ones that make the juice on the mac and cheese. Like, don't come in that lane trying to get the juice ministry if you haven't built up that level of credibility. And for a lot of us, what happens in wrestling with this as a pastor, it's like you come on the scene. I'm a positional leader. Yeah, you're the positional leader, and you have the right to say that from now on you're going to make the juice. But you probably shouldn't, because people don't trust the juice that you have. They've never tasted it. It hasn't been vetted. You haven't gotten feedback on it. It's probably best for you to partner with the best juice maker in the space. And actually, what happens is you do something called, you leverage social capital. So if you see me with the best juice maker week after week after week, month after month after month, and then one day the best juice maker says, hey, I'm going to ask Pierre to make the juice this week. The people around are not going to try the juice because I made it. They're trying the juice because the person with the actual leadership in the space recommended me. And for a lot of us, what we do is we put on our leadership hat and say, hey, I'm the captain of the ship. I'm in charge. I can make all the decisions. And you haven't built up any social capital. People don't know if they can trust you. They don't know if you're reliable yet. They don't know if you're consistent. And what's best to do when you come into an organization as a pastor, as a leader, as a ministry leader, even when you go into your job, even if you get a title on your job, you're not the real leader. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. You're not the real leader. It's a person who's been there longer than you, a person who has all the credibility, a person who, when it's time to make a decision and time to vote, you're the chairman of the conversation, but they're going to look across the room at the real authority and see how they vote. And leaders understand, it's going to take me some time to move to the place where I have that influence. All I have now is position, and I'm going to have to be discerning enough to understand, how can I create scenarios so that people can trust me in a small way? And once people trust me with small things, eventually they'll trust me with bigger things.
Wow, this is amazing, man. I remember when I was a Pathfinder, we were in Cohutta Springs there in Calhoun, Georgia. And I used to go to camp there every summer, and I was on a trail. And I remember while I was in camp that, the way the camp director, made sure that we didn't go in the wrong direction as the trail veered, was he tied a red ribbon around the tree. And I remember that red ribbon. And one time our Pathfinder group, man, went to that same campsite, and we got lost. We were like scared lost, like for hours in the mountains of Cohutta Springs. And I said to my director that we should have turned at the red string on the tree. And they didn't believe me at first. I was green. I was green. They didn't trust me. I guess I didn't have the credibility, but I knew I had been that way before, but it wasn't until they got lost that they came and they asked me to help them. And I was able to do so by the markers, and essentially I was able to move them in the right direction. And we were able to get off the mountain, and that was kind of reminding me of what you just said, because your definition of leadership was an evolution of Colin Powell's, and this is what you said. Yeah. You said, my own working definition is, this is what leadership is: encouraging people to step in the direction of what they have the potential to become.
Yeah.
Why is this so hard for people to grasp, considering our young people, and not giving them the opportunity, putting them in the direction so they can become the best potential of what they can become?
So I'm a sports guy. I'm a sports fan, and everyone, I wouldn't say everyone, but a lot of us want to be championship coaches.
Okay.
And from a leadership context, we want to be championship coaches. We want to lead our team to getting the trophy and hoisting the banner and the confetti and all of that. Nobody wants to be the rebuilding coach.
Oh wow, yeah.
Nobody wants to be the rebuilding coach. Nobody, because there's not a lot of kudos and a lot of accolades that go along with the rebuilding process. And a lot of times as leaders, when you come into a place, especially if you go into a place where it has been devastation before you, maybe the only thing that you can do in your tenure is to get people to turn in the right direction.
Okay.
Getting them to turn in the right direction is a step. The next leader comes along and gets them to begin to lean in the right direction. Because if you notice when you walk, there's always a leaning forward before you take that step.
A move.
And for a lot of us is, man, I want to be the leader that is running with the team down the road. Well, we're not going to run down the road if we're pointed in the wrong direction. It may take you 4 years to get, I almost said church. It may take you 4 years to get your team pointed in the right direction. And by the time that 4 years is over, your tenure may be gone.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever positive step in the right direction, and even so, let's pick a team. Let's pick Miami Heat. Not the second iteration with the big three, the first iteration. And for
Alonzo Mourning, Tim Hardaway.
Well, those guys got a title.
The one before
that.
Okay.
So before the big three, they won.
You know, Prince is from Miami, so you
so
before the big three, they won.
Yeah.
Right? Who was the coach when they won?
Pat Riley.
Right. Who was before Pat Riley?
Stan
Van Gundy.
Yeah.
Right. So Stan Van Gundy put so much work into shifting the culture and perception of leader. I'm watching this from afar.
Yeah.
Shifting the culture and perception of leadership and what it means to play basketball the Miami way. Right. And then Stan Van Gundy comes along. Stan Van Gundy, championship year, they hoist the banner, all of the celebration. And we forget when Pat Riley hoists the trophy. Well, outside, maybe y'all didn't forget in Miami, but outside looking in, we forgot all the work Stan Van Gundy put in.
Yeah.
All of the effort, all of the coaching, all the mentoring, all the training, all the basketball fundamentals, all of the corralling of big personalities that Stan Van Gundy did to position Miami for success. And I would make the argument that what Stan Van Gundy did was just as valuable in the long term of the leadership perspective as what Pat Riley did by bringing them to a championship. And here's the thing that we have to embrace. Everybody will not be Pat Riley. Mm-hmm. Some of you will never be Pat Riley leaders. Mm-hmm. Your charge is to be a Stan Van Gundy leader that paves the way and smooths the stones and throws some boulders and takes some hits and sets up the pedestal for a person to really reap what you've sown into so many years.
I mean, in our last few minutes, Prince, talk to us. I mean, how does that charge, inspire you, to make sure that we leave a legacy here in Southeastern, for our young people so that they can hoist that trophy?
It's that I dare say it sounds like a sacrificial system.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we're following the greatest mentor and his example, which is Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, putting everything on the line, leaving everything behind, and saying, "Pick it up and follow me."
Yeah.
It's already set for success. And I love the analogy of those two great coaches. Because really, without the first piece, I would have never been successful. Because you need someone to basically sacrifice themselves for the culture. And I think what Doc said is what I hope we can all do as a conference.
Yeah.
The culture is more important than the man. And the legacy means absolutely nothing if the culture is not set. If this culture is not about salvation, if it's not about moving young people into an area of advancement, to move the gospel into areas that some of us just can't go, we can't do it, then we may be leaving a legacy in regards to what you have done. You contributed your collaborative spirit. But if the culture is still broken, what success is that? So tonight, I mean, bro, just this small investment can basically change the trajectory of this cultural war we have against these generations. We can all coexist and collaborate and be great in Him who called us all into one season together. If we were not called for a season, many of us would have been in the grave right now.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you are alive is an indication that you are a part of the season, and this season must continue. As we drift off, someone else must fulfill the next portion of this culture. And I want to say culture. I'm gonna stick with that culture because legacy is nice, but you can have your own legacy and still have a dynasty. New York Knicks. And I love my New Yorkers. You have had some great coaches with great legacy.
Yeah, that's so true.
I get myself in trouble with my New York people, but the culture sucks. Let's be honest, But Quinn, listen, man, listen. This was great, bro. I'm going to give you a call because we're heading into a new season also, and Java is with this crazy idea that the Lord just birthed. It's a crazy idea. But as you said before, it's that opportunity. It's making opportunities for our young people, man. You're going to be a very, inspirational piece of this puzzle. Then realize that coming on tonight in this fashion, we were going to find another piece to this inspirational movement we have. But I think what Doc laid out is what we want to do with this move project that we have. And listen, man, Thursday, guys, if you can, 13 to 21, we are moving from program ministry. We want to give our young people something more than just the conversation. Let's give them the keys. We talked enough about how to drive. We talked about the car and all of the mechanism and the engine and all that good stuff. But now it's time to give them the keys and say, listen, drive the car. Yeah. Drive whatever car you see on the lot within the garage. You have the ability, you know how to, and we're going to step back and allow you to drive. 8 o'clock, I don't care who you are, where you are, come and be a part of this new strategy to give you the keys to lead. And trust me, I'm going to say this publicly, Java. We're going to have Dr. Quinn on with us. And I dare say, I see the future. It looks really bright. I see some training. I see some empowering sessions as we move our leaders from just programming the heck out of our kids to moving back and facilitating and collaborative, efforts with them leading ministry. So, Doc, I would never forget, and I want you to touch on great man, great woman when we come to our session, because listen, that by itself should be a workshop for workers meeting.
Most definitely.
Dare say camp meeting. How about that?
Yeah.
So, Dr. Quinn, I look forward to some time where you can invest in our young people and our leaders. I think, Java, this was great.
Listen, man, I'm full, man. I'm full. Our time is up, man, and I want to let everybody know that we're gonna be back next week because.
Listen, Jay, do me a favor.
Yes, sir.
It's an order. I want some books from this man.
Oh yeah. Well, we're gonna order books. I just want everybody to know right now we've got books that we are ready to send to you. secsda.org/book it. Go ahead, fill out your name and information. Listen, I just feel the Spirit of God moving. We're not going to put a cap limit on this. We want everybody right now to go sign up. We're going to send you your copy of this book, Leading While Green. We have not even touched the surface of the dynamic power that's in this book. And so, Quinn has set the stage in letting us understand that trust is a key element to move people forward. And in our final word, he said movement requires trust, and gaining that trust requires time. And then you talked about, I wonder how long it took for MLK to gain the trust to lead the civil rights movement. You said he was just 26 years old. There's some young person who is out there right now who think that you are too young, but MLK, he was young and he was able to move people in the right direction.
Sir.
Quinn, send us off with a final word. Our time is up. We're going to come back next week. You want to be here on talking about emerging leaders and leading while green. Quinn, any final words?
One of the cool things about Dr. King is that they suggest that his youth and his newness was actually a great leverage piece, because he was so young and so new. He had not burned bridges that civil rights leaders had. And it was his newness that actually propelled him forward, because he was coming with a fresh perspective and a clean slate that other leaders who attempted to do things before him could never do. So again, don't let anybody despise your youth. Your youth is just a leverage piece that you need to make a greater impact for the kingdom. And I want to challenge you all through scriptural narrative. God is actively choosing young people to take the message forward. And we know an integral part of finishing the work. So blessings on you.
Hey, that's our time. We just want to thank you so much for sharing about emerging leadership, leading while green. Until next week, we look forward to see you. And please don't forget, on the 15th, we have our special meeting, ages 13 to 21. You want to make sure that you sign up. The Zoom meeting code is going to be US/J/91515021053. We look forward to see you. The meeting ID specifically again is 915-1502-1053. Thank you so much, Quinn. Thanks for coming out, everybody. We look forward to